welcome back to another episode of Healthy Mind, Healthy Life. I'm your host Avik, and today we are unlocking the science of motivation, focus, and the personal growth through something that runs the show behind the scenes of our daily lives, which is the dopamine. Yeah, so we all know that dopamine is the feel good chemical, but did you know that it's also the key to motivation, mental resilience, and even overcoming the chronic fatigue? So, my guest today is Andy West. So, welcome to the show, Andy.
Thank you so much. It's great to talk to you.
Lovely, lovely. So, dear listeners, before we start delving deep into this topic, I'll quickly love to introduce you with Andy. So, dear listeners, Andy knows this firsthand. So, he's a motivational speaker and author of Dopamine Mountain and Anhedonia, Wastelands. And the story is nothing sort of remarkable. So Andy suffered from severe long COVID for nearly 4 years, dealing with the brain fog, chronic fatigue, cognitive dysfunction, and severe ADHD-like symptoms. But instead of accepting that this condition was permanent, she hacked his this dopamine system and rewired brain, making a full recovery. Now it's not only that, but she has also learned to overcome the migraines, chronic pains, reset the parasympathetic sympathetic nervous system.
hmm
And today, he, I have to say that he is to share those hacks with us. And so, whether you are struggling with the motivation, focus, or mental clarity, or maybe you just want to level up your mindset and the personal growth, then this episode is for you. So, I'll not take much of your time, dear listeners. Let's dive in and welcome to the show again, Andy.
Thank you so much.
Lovely. So, Andy, like the power of dopamine, why it's more than just a feel good factor uh, or kind of feel good chemical. So, your story is incredible. From the COVID symptoms and making it to the full recovery. So, why is it? w- I mean, but before we get into why, if you can first let us know for the listeners who are not much aware about the dopamine, what exactly it is and why it's so important for more than just pleasure.
Yes, so it is a neurotransmitter, which means that it sends information or it facilitates the information to flow between one part of the brain to another. But dopamine is, like you said, it's a feel good chemical. But more importantly, it drives our wanting and every bit of behavior that we do that we want to do. And
Okay.
almost every bit of our behavior is driven by what we want or what we need. And so that's why we need some dopamine to do that. And if we don't have enough dopamine, or in animal studies where they've depleted the dopamine of these creatures, especially in mice and rat models, they find that the animal will not even move to feed itself. It will not move the tiniest bit to feed itself, even though it wants to move forward and to consume the food. It just doesn't have the fuel there or the information to make the body work towards that.
Hmm. Understood. So,
So yes, it's
mm,
extremely important for everything that we want to do. So if we want
mm,
or need to do something, we just need to have dopamine, and a lot of conditions deplete it. So it's
yeah.
it's really important for us to make sure that we look after the dopamine we have, and we can even, like you said, use some hacks and get some more of it.
Exactly. Exactly. So, I mean, it's really fascinating. Like most people think of dopamine as just an instant gratification, like
Mm.
social media likes, junk foods, Netflix binges. Uh, but what you're saying is that we can actually train dopamine to work for us, not against us. So, what are
Yes.
some of the daily kind of habits that are unknowingly draining our dopamine reserves, like making us feel, unmotivated?
Yes, you are right. We do access and use our dopamine when we get those instant gratification, so-called
Mm.
hits, when we want to scroll or just binge on Netflix or just use sugar and pleasurable things that are an instant hit. But that's actually depleting our dopamine when we don't have to work for it first. And this is really the key that I'm sure our grandparents knew really well, but because they had to work so hard for everything that they had, and now a lot of people are able to get these sort of instant hits without putting in effort first. So there's no waiting and there's no hard work and there's no
Mm.
discomfort a lot of the time. So many people can just wake up and instantly get something with sugar in it or instantly scroll on their phone, and what this is doing is making our dopamine work backwards. So, all throughout history, we've had to work. So, the order of what we do has been effort, which is, putting in the effort to get the thing,
Mm.
then the reward, which is the dopamine reward, which is anything that feels good instantly, and then rest. And so, when we do it backwards, and we are basically, so if we're doing nothing and then rewarding it, we are rewarding inaction or inactivity. And of course, when we reward something, as we know
Mm.
from when we would train an animal like a dog, if you reward something, not that people are dogs, but our dopamine system works in a really similar way. Same with mice and rats and anything that moves, really. When we reward something, we just get more of it. So if we're rewarding inactivity, especially first thing in the morning, then we're just going to get more of that. So when we reward effort, we will get better at effort and we will actually enjoy it more.
Mm. True. So there's a lot of talk about dopamine detoxing, like cutting out social media, fast food, or kind of any kind of instant gratification. So do you think that works? I mean, or is there a better approach to
It,
rewiring it?
you're right, it does actually work, but there are ways to maximize its efficiency. So in the morning, a dopamine detox is an amazing thing to do because when we wake up, we've been fasting, but uh, if we can lay off the dopamine for a short time and delay that and do something effortful first thing in the morning. This is
Mm.
part of the protocol that I use, and it's very simple, but the key is the order in which we do the things. So what I personally do is I get up and I do a hard run first thing in the morning. Now, I hated running. I was not an athlete of any kind, but it just has to be a short run. It has to be hard. So for some people, that might be 3 minutes of brisk walking. Or if somebody is in a wheelchair, that might be a couple of minutes of just moving briskly in a forward motion. A treadmill is not as good. But doing that difficult but not extreme thing first thing in the morning is going to actually let us deliberately drop our own dopamine a bit because it's not going to feel good. We don't want it to feel good. But then the secret here is that it will naturally rise on its own if we push it down by choice first. And this is quite a well-known thing, but I don't
Mhm.
think people understand that first thing in the morning is key because that's when we've got a lot of natural dopamine. So people who are really struggling with any low dopamine, things like low mood, low motivation, low happiness, low drive, anything like this, if they can do something really effortful first thing in the morning and even a
Mm.
couple of things, and then have their dopamine reward, that's really going to supercharge their mornings. And it may not happen the very first time, but it will add up like building a muscle. This will add up gradually, and you will start to see results
Mm.
within a couple of weeks for myself.
Exactly. Yeah. So like I mean, I have to say that this is really a game changer, and so we can also share some practical dopamine hack that anyone can start using today to boost the motivation and the focus.
Yes. So my protocol that I'm currently doing, and I have modified this now and then just to find out what works for me. But like I mentioned, my run is the first thing I do. I just basically get up, put on shoes and socks, and get out the door. If it's like really, the weather doesn't really allow for it, then I will do squats or push-ups or something like that. About maybe 30 different 30 reps altogether, maybe in sets of about 10. And then a few more if I can. So I want to make it hard and not extreme. And then I will have a cold shower. And it only has to be a brief shower. Sometimes I'll have quite a long cold shower if the weather's nice, like it is here at the moment. But that is another really well-known dopamine hack that, again, lowers our dopamine so that when we get out, just the relief raises dopamine naturally. So we're just building these challenges on top of each other, and then let the dopamine go up. So the more challenges, even if we do a hard chore we don't want to do, like something strenuous or something we've been putting off for a while, if we can get that done in the morning and then have our dopamine after, and especially moderate our dopamine, we wouldn't want to have something extremely sweet in the morning, really. It'd be better to have something healthy and then just a little bit of sweetness at the end if we really want it as the reward. But doing things like this help raise dopamine, and so does journaling. And there's a lot of research on journaling at the moment. And that means going towards difficult emotions, again, something challenging that we find hard to do. Sometimes we don't want to feel our anger and we don't want to feel our anxiety. We don't want to write down things, that are difficult and challenging. But when we start to write those things down, we're going towards something hard, which means we are using our dopamine to move forward, because that's what it's for. And then that will put us into again, lower our dopamine on purpose so that when we stop, we feel that relief. And writing down those difficult things that are hard to process also just gets it out of our head, and then we can just move on and have a much better day.
True. Exactly. So, like dopamine isn't just about the focus and the productivity; it's also deeply connected to the mental health. So, many people
Mm.
struggles with this depression, anxiety, and also have this low dopamine levels. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Mm.
So, how can someone use this hacks to naturally improve their mental health and mood stability?
Yes, well, dopamine is directly connected to mood. If our mood goes down, then our dopamine goes down. And if our dopamine goes up, then it takes our mood up. So when we do things like this, even though, look, it is really hard, if someone is in deep depression or anhedonia, and I've been in both of those in my life, it's extremely hard when you feel bad to do something that's going to make you feel temporarily worse. Like, that's the last thing someone wants to do. But living with depression or anhedonia is so difficult that I started to find that doing this, even though it was hard, actually much better. I was having much better days than I was prior. So it was just a no-brainer, really, to do things like this. And when I didn't do them, then I would feel a lot worse. And now, because we do have so much access to the social media, the scrolling or the gambling or whatever it is, especially porn even, terrible for dopamine. Not that I'm judging people, because people can live their life however they want to, but terrible for dopamine because it's just so instantaneous and easy to get. So if we practice in the morning doing these things, we will see an improvement in our mood. With anxiety that you mentioned, that's something that I also struggled with for a while. And the journaling is amazing for anxiety because we go towards the difficult thing and we don't run from it. It can take some practice, but it is completely safe to sit in those feelings of difficult, anxious emotions and to feel them, allow them, and just actually move into them and towards them, because then they don't have that power to make us back away and to scare us away. If everything we move towards, especially the hard stuff, we do actually get a dopamine rise when we do that, because then nothing bad happens and we realize, oh, okay, I'm alive, I'm here, I did it. It was a challenge, but I made it. And when we do that, our dopamine just naturally rises because that bad thing we were expecting and dreading just doesn't happen.
Exactly. So, many people also feel like they have no control over their emotions, but what you are saying is that by making small dopamine shifts, we can take back the control of our mental state. So, for someone who feels stuck in a low energy, unmotivated rut, uh, so what's the first step they should take?
I say the first step, and this is what helped me, is to notice that every small effort that we make is actually a success. Because we have another neurotransmitter called GABA that decides whether what we did was successful or not. So when we move forward, that is a success. Even if we don't exactly like the progress we've made, we need to remember that every small step will add up to something. So if you can't get out of bed in the morning, which a lot of people can't, and
Mm,
I've been there, just moving one finger closer to the edge of that bed, that is success. And we need to celebrate that
mm,
and say, okay, yes, I've done one step. Great. Now, what's the next step? And it might be hard, but we just move another body part a little bit closer. And then there's a podcaster called Mel Robbins, and she says to say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then just launch
mm,
into what we want to do. Because just building up that little expectation, um, just getting started takes a little bit of dopamine, but we can use that little bit of dopamine just to start. And once we've made that start, even the smallest step, we can then progress from there.
mm. Okay. And okay, also it's like you didn't just recover from long COVID, but you came back stronger than before. So you have built a system for sustained motivation, peak performance, and mental resilience. So what are the top three things that someone can do to rewrite their dopamine system for long-term success?
Yes. So apart from the running cold showers and the journaling, what I did was, in addition to the journaling, I started writing down the protocol that was working for me. And that's how the book actually came about. So my focus was terrible at the time. I was struggling to do simple tasks. I mean, I was really struggling to make a cup of tea. So once I started doing my protocol, it started to work and I got better. I started writing the book, just writing down what I was experiencing, and I would set a 2 hour timer and I would make myself sit there and do as much work as I possibly could. And this was actually inspired by Stephen Pressfield's book. And I just decided to write as much as I could and just do the best job that I could. And he calls it turning
Mm,
pro. And The War of Art is the name of his book. And just making myself focus meant that I practiced focus. And if I could
yeah.
practice focus, I got better at it like anything. But the trick was just to stick with it when it was hard. You know, when you feel like it's not working, I'm not progressing, and it's so hard and you want to quit. Well, we don't want to reward the quitting. If I would have gone to reward the quit with going and having something sweet or chocolate or something like that, that's not going to be helpful. In this case, what I wanted to do was to push through, persevere, and use grit. And then once I got to a goal, then allow myself to have something sweet. And I actually do use really small sweets, like a small candy or a small skittle or something like that. When I've put in the effort, then I give myself that, and maybe only a couple of times a day when I've really persevered through something, because then I can use dopamine to my advantage. So once I do that hard thing and I reward it, my whole system will say, great, let's do that again because that was successful.
Mm, okay. And so also like that's really a gold. So this isn't about quick fixes, it's all about training your brain to create sustainable motivation loop that keeps you growing, learning, and thriving. So what's the biggest misconceptions people have about dopamine motivation and the personal growth?
I think a lot of people know that exercise will help.
Mm,
Basically, anything that's going wrong in your life, apart from certain injuries, I suppose, exercise is going to help for pretty much every mental health problem. And we know it helps physically as well, but people don't do it in the right order. And that is going to really go against them. If they get up and eat junk food and then think, well, I'll go and work it off at the gym. No, it doesn't work that way. Once you've eaten, the next stage is rest. So we do effort, reward, rest. And once we have rewarded inaction, we don't want to go to the gym. So we have to make sure that we do that hard stuff first and then remember the order to reward it afterwards is so important. And if we just do it, even starting small, even starting with a short walk first thing in the morning, that is success. If you just get up and do something challenging that you do not want to do, you will start to see results and you will create a much stronger and more resilient mind.
Hmm. Exactly. So, any advice you'd like to share?
I just always go towards hard things now. I used to avoid the hard things. I didn't want to do things. I found it hard. I found it challenging or threatening. Well, now I think if I'm in a bit of a rut or I'm struggling to motivate, I remember, no, I do hard things. I'm someone who goes
Mm,
towards hard things because that makes me stronger. And so I go and do that thing and I push through and then I remember to reward myself. Again, really
mm,
important to give ourselves some kind of reward afterwards. Because if we just go, 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 we're going to burn out. We still have
mm,
to remember, yes, effort, reasonable amount of effort. Don't be extreme. Then reward ourselves somehow and then rest. And if we just cycle through that, we will have a much better day.
okay, that's great. Yeah, it's great. So, Andy, I mean, this conversation is really, really mind blowing, I would say, and you have completely changed the way we think about dopamine, motivation, and the mental resilience. So, for anyone who is listening, if you are feeling unmotivated, stuck, or mentally drained, the problem isn't you, it's your dopamine system.
Mm,
So, and the good news is you can rewire it.
hmm.
That's correct. Yeah. So,
Yes.
yeah. So, the listeners, like, if you want to learn more about Andy, then go check out Andy's books, Dopamine Mountain and Anhedonia Wastelands. So, they are packed with the strategies to help you break free from the mental fatigue and start living at your own peak. So Andy, like, where can our listeners connect with you or dive deeper into your work or about your books also?
I'm on Instagram, which is Dopamine Mountain, just one word. Also on Facebook, the same, and dopaminemountain.com.
Oh, that's quite easy. So, dear listeners, I'll share all the links into the show notes for your easy reference. And yeah, if you have loved this episode, share it with a friend, family, or someone who actually needs a dopamine reset. And do not forget to subscribe to Healthy Mind and Healthy Life because every week we bring you the best insights to help you upgrade your mind, body, and the life. So, until next time, train your dopamine, master your mindset, and keep growing. So, with this hope, stay healthy, stay happy. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.